Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a campaign guide for Emperor Karl Franz in Total War Warhammer 3. This is a campaign that quite a good number of people do struggle with when they're starting, because you do have a wide front over here, and there is a certain tendency in a Karl Franz campaign for people to think that they need to preserve all the electric counts. You do not need to do so. In fact, anything that's west of Midland, Nuln, and Reichland is not really important for Empire. So you're looking at Marienburg, you're looking at Nuln, you're looking at Reichland, and to some degree Midland. Those are the core territories of the Empire that should be preserved. Now, you do have Elspeth south of you. She's going to be very useful in this particular area. Okay, so when you start your campaign, you want to do a couple of things. First off, what you should do in any campaign, pretty much, is when you start it, you go to various factions and you see against who you can declare war on in order to get a bit of money. That money is useful. It's not necessary, but it is useful to get a bit of cash to start your campaign. So you look at Forgrim, you look at Katrin, their enemies, you get trade agreements. You look at Artois. Now, this is being recorded on legendary campaign difficulty. Battle difficulty is a different discussion. But you declare war on these factions to give yourself an infusion of early game cash that will help you out. Some things delay them a bit, like Musalon, for instance, and all that. But that is how you start your campaign situation. In fact, you might go even further and declare war on Bastan. They might attack Helmgard, however, keep that in mind. But that is a very winnable battle. Helmgard can withstand a vast amount of attacks, and that's kind of the point about it, that you do have that defensive structure. And that defense will not just be useful against anyone coming from Bretonnia, it will be useful if, say, the Empire Secessionists want to attack somewhere, because they will have a tendency of going for it. Now, another thing is with regards to research. My recommendation is, generally speaking, whether or not you own any DLC, to go for Clergy of Sigmar. The reason is, more casualty replenishment heroes always do help. Another thing to be said with regards to this is there is a specific trait for Empire Lords that is very useful, and that's called Noble. It isn't inherently important, but it can be useful. You can use the load save character system, or you can start the campaign over and over again. It is a random trait. Sometimes you get to start the campaign, sometimes you just use the load save character system. And what you do if you use the load save character system, you move them in the water from Altdorf, and you move them back in the settlement. That reduces construction time of settlement structures by 25%. And then you dismiss this specific lord that just has it. And then, once you've done all of that, you go pick a fight with the Empire Secessionists, this initial army. My recommendation, fight these battles manually. You will get more post-battle loot. The auto-resolve here in this case is very favorable to me, but bear in mind that a lot of the battles you're seeing happening here are things you're going to want to fight manually in the base game. I'm not going to go over how you need to fight battles. Let me just say this. Mortars, handgunners, and Karl Franz tanking damage while your melee infantry stays behind to prevent any flanking maneuvers is the way you go about it. So occupy Grunberg and then set up the grazing pastures right here, while also recruiting a bunch of Empire Spearmen with shields. The reason you want to recruit Empire Spearmen with shields, one, they're actually more effective in combat than regular Spearmen. The main goal of Spearmen is to hold the line, but Spearmen with shields have more melee defense and a bronze shield, so they'll do better. I see a lot of pictures on Reddit from people, it's like they just recruit Spearmen because they think the barracks is not worth keeping around. But just recruiting a bunch of Spearmen with shields is very useful. Yes, it does mean certain structures won't be constructed necessarily as fast, but it's almost always worth it to go down that path, as opposed to, say, getting rid of the barracks, getting the shooting range, getting pistoliers. We will come to that. There is obviously use to that specific situation right there. And also, you might want to move Karl Franz south of his, out of the settlement he's just taken. Because this is where you have a choice. The natural path, the way you usually do this as the Empire, you recruit another Lord and Helmgart, you attack Ubersreich on turn 2, you go for Eilhart. That on turn 3. That is the general natural path to take over here. But there is an alternative that is actually better in a lot of different ways. So let's go over that specific alternative and why it's so valuable to do so. Okay, so on turn 2, you'll get the Battle Wizard at Helmgart, usually. And what you want to do here is you want to march directly into enemy territory right here against Elspeth's initial enemy. Whether or not she takes this province in 2 turns, in this case she hasn't taken this specific settlement, or she moves slower, as has been the case here, that is not really relevant. You also want to use Open the Gates very frequently and start getting those elements to a higher tier. That's the useful part of the noble trait. You will get to a higher level. And the thing about getting to a higher level, I'm going to get another one, the reason going to a higher level is so important is that it's actually a growth benefit in your campaign. Higher level main settlement buildings increase the growth of your entire province. So getting to tier 2 in 2 turns as opposed to 3 is, in fact, very, very useful for you as a player. Now, from the testing experience I've had with regards to how these things play out, usually speaking, in this case Elspeth took this specific settlement, that's fine, but usually speaking, Elspeth will not necessarily take things as quickly as one might think. What you want to do here is actually set up a battle here. Now, you can attack this settlement, and due to the way that Imperial settlements are set up, you can actually win this battle. If it's a siege, there is a mighty garrison here, etc., but you can use up the ammunition of your handgunners, your mortars, do a lot of damage, and then once you're out of ammo, you can just pull back and attack again and again, or you can just wait. Once you've done certain levels of damage, you can just wait for them to sally out. That is a strategy. It does work. It does function. Another thing you may want to do is with Helmgart, you do want to get it to tier 2. But you do want to put this element under siege as quickly as possible. Either because Elspeth is going to help you out, or even if she doesn't help you out, though it would have been ideal if I had been able to take Wissenberg here. But because she took it before me, I'm in a situation where I have to, decide. Do I besiege this element? Or do I go for this one, take it over, and sell it back to Elspeth? The benefit in going after after these elements is you ensure your relationship with Elspeth is in a stronger level, and that's kind of an important factor because Elspeth is absolutely very powerful as a legendary lord, but her AI tends to be very passive a lot of the time. Again, it's not important necessarily to win this battle, but I think to win this battle here, you could just, besiege her for a couple of turns and all that. When you take this element, loot and occupy it. Don't give it to Elspeth. Don't go down that path, because the main reason we came here specifically is exactly to take this element over for the Empire. And that's the key point here. You want this element as Karl Franz because this element is going to give you a lot of benefits. Start getting Helmgart to tier 2, get another lord right here, maybe recruit some units if you're feeling like it. But what you really are after is you want the Elector Count seat of Solent. The reason you want the Elector Count seat of Solent is, one, it gives you the seat benefits, so local government capacity, vanguard deployment, etc. Upkeep for crossbowmen, spearmen units, etc. But very important, gives you the Grudge Seller and gives you the Eldred's Guard. The Eldritch Guard is one of those units that does help you a fair amount as a player. So over here, you know, I get a peace agreement with Bastan. I should have gotten a peace agreement with Artois. That's something I did miss there. See, Kemlar starts at war with Artois. After turn 1, you declare war on them through Kemlar on turn 1. On turn 2, you can get the peace agreement and money from that process. You also want to trigger a rebellion right here for the cash that they will provide. But yeah, you do want the Eldritch Guard. The reason you want them, and the reason this entire adventure is so worth it, is Eldritch Guards give you a high-level armor unit that is really good at line holding. And if you don't rush for this, you will not take this element as easily. You may also use, you know, call to arms for reducing recruitment costs and all that kind of stuff, but you may also want to salvage prestige with Karl Franz, which gains in every battle, for things like Send Aid to increase fealty, unification for the sake of fealty with for the sake of confederation with electric counts, and maybe even Casus Belli to be able to declare war on an electric count without the downside. Though bear in mind, the downside is not too big. And while it does call it as fealty to confederate a faction, and at the beginning, you can upgrade this with Emperor of the Empire in order to remove the fealty cost and be able to confederate any imperial faction, regardless of where they are across the world. And the faction we're actually interested in being up is Stirland. Partly because Stirland does give you another electric count unit, but also partly because you can then use Stirland to get, and yes, this does happen, and I want to emphasize something. They've attacked the fort. They will not win this battle. There's no chance in which this army here, with any degree of, you know, capability or, you know, any degree of understanding of how these things work, there's no chance this one loses. You take down the mortars with range units or with the towers. You kill their own range units with your crossbowmen. That's the reason the Imperial Secessionists are not a threat in this campaign, because they will lose pretty damn hard in this context. Okay, so we're at tier 2. We've gotten the one warrior priest. Another one will be available in 3 turns. We get an Imperial Captain here. We get a Witch Hunter soon enough next turn. And we want to recruit a couple of Spearman Shields, and range units will be recruited later. Here, what you do, Karl, you take Karl, you go after these guys. Again, you have the capability of winning, and you do so largely because of the prestige benefit as well as experience benefit with Karl, and yes, also the money aspect. If you don't own Beast and the Hunter DLC, you won't be able to recruit archers, but that's fine. Even if you recruit an entire army of spearmen, it's more important to have weight of numbers, and yes, that was very, very beneficial right there. It's more important to have weight of numbers than anything else. Now, I want to say why I got attacked here, because that's an important AI behavior. The AI will attack you where they feel you're vulnerable. So if you have, say, an army right next to a fort, they will attack. But whenever an army attacks near a fort, they trigger that fort battle. So that's bait. Whenever you're constructing something in a province, the AI does feel more incentivized to actually act against said province. So right now, we got another open the gates situation right there. So we got 2 start plus points. We don't have the money, though that may depend, you know, I would have had the money if I hadn't ignored D'Artois, but we can get that. That's not necessarily the big problem right here. You know, we go through Scrag, Border Princes, won't quite be enough, but there are ways of tackling this specific problem. Like, for instance, you could declare war on the Black Pit Tribe if you want to. And one of the things as well, you want to send aid to Midland. The reason you want to send aid to Midland is, while it might seem like Talabayim is a good Confederation option, the reality is Talabayim is not a good territory to actually confederate early on. It's useful to keep them alive, but it's more useful to get Midland to withstand Kazdrak and then confederate that situation. Confederate them as faction. And also we do have Musillan as a declaration of war available as well. So some options, spearmen with shields, and soon enough, handgunners and a couple of other things as well. So what I'm going to do really is actually move this army closer to the enemy settlement. Because they've just thrown themselves against me, they've lost everything, so I am not specifically concerned right there. And next up, we will be attacking the greenskins in the settlement. They don't really have, again, like, a bunch of spearmen will be greenskins right there. They have just goblins and squegs, the basic units they can recruit from any settlement. And the thing is, as I stated, you want to trigger a rebellion in Fildorf. That's experience, that's value, that's things that are going to end up helping you in your campaign right here. Very swiftly, very decisively. And you also get a quest battle, though you may want to put that on the back burner a bit. In this case, we'll allow expansion because Ostermark is going to be wiped out anyway. We take down this specific army right here with Karl. We loot and occupy. And the loot and occupying aspect here, you may actually get this building or a kind of recruitment building. That does tend to happen. And now with all of our troops right here and heroes, we should have enough strength to just, you know, auto-resolve or fight this battle. Even if you can't auto-resolve, you definitely freaking can win here. So we bring our stuff, and we may also want to deliberately trigger a rebellion in Altdorf. And the reason we want to trigger a rebellion in Altdorf, Altdorf's garrison is pretty strong. No joke. So because it's strong, you know it has a lot of units, you know a rebellion doesn't have a high likelihood of success right there. With Karl Franz and with lords in general, I prefer going pistol corps initially. Right here. So I will get rebellions here, but rebellions are money. Don't be afraid of rebellions. Don't be afraid of that situation. Get rid of the barracks here. It's not important. And then take a look at what other diplomatic options may have become available. Like, for instance, Catherine's war with the Bjornsing and all that. This is where I have to point out something. Winning battles with low casualties helps you immensely with regards to diplomacy. The reason is... the reason is, and we'll just get rid of some of these guys because we don't need them and get pistoliers. The reason is that a lot of diplomatic decisions or how willing AI factions are to make certain deals does depend on how strong you are. Your faction strength is determined by the strength of your armies. So right here on faction strength 129, more people would be willing to make a lot more deals if I was a higher strength. So this is one of the reasons why auto-resolving battles and taking a lot of casualties even temporarily is not, strictly speaking, a great idea. Something important to mention that people should not ignore. We even have an extra population surplus point here, but not really vital right here. Make sure you get replenished troops with a warrior priest. Make sure you get training on the captain. Make sure you get the witch hunter active. Even if you have to cancel some repairs, as I do here in order to recruit. Money is one of those things. Would like to state, with regards to what we're seeing here, that it's always useful to take a look at what the diplomatic situation is. You don't want to declare war on major factions. It's fine to declare war on minor factions. especially if those minor factions are already getting wiped out. Of course, with Imperial factions, you gotta consider the situation with respect to how things are going to stand from a field perspective. And this quest battle especially, relatively easy if you fight manually. Like, that's the thing, you do really minimize a lot of the casualties you take if you fight these things manually. But also over here, I do want to trigger the rebellion, so I'll just move Karl Franz. You replenish more when you're in a settlement, that kind of stuff. So money, less of a problem now. And now we can prepare ourselves to march on Stirland in order to get Elspeth support there while also securing Eilhart. By the way, you do get a random mage with respect to Karl Franz. Light wizards, metal wizards, fire wizards. Personally, I do think light wizards are really good in some ways because they're actually great at single target damage through the Sheen's Burning Gaze. Also, with regards to skills, I prefer spending 5 skill points in Inspiring Presence, Route Marching, Pistol Core, and then save up for a special skill line so I can unlock all of it at once. You also want Leader of Men at rank 17. So those are immediate concerns right here. We then go after Stirland while keeping the upgrade path going, getting our economy in order. There are certain things that do tend to happen in campaigns. One of those is Kazrak suiciding himself against Altdorf, though apparently he has decided not to do that right here. Another thing is Kemmler going to war with Marienburg, and you know he will go to war with Marienburg. Once you figure out what the patterns of AI behavior are, at least on Legendary, this is actually a Legendary very hard with some tweaks made in some places for the sake, of resolving quest battles and such. Keep in mind, you do usually need money to teleport to a quest battle, so factor that in some of your decision making. But yeah, we got Faldorf. We're gonna get a rebellion here. We'll deal with that rebellion, get more experience, sort these things out. No problem. Next turn, deal with the Empire Secessionist. 2 turns from now, get another warrior priest, which I'll actually send to Karl. And we will be in a position to deal with both Stirland and to also deal with Kemmler. And that's kind of thing you want to do in this campaign. There is a fort here that Marienburg holds. If you can get Kemmler to attack an army of yours next to this fort, it will be a fort battle that gives you a significant advantage. You can fight in it, do a lot of damage to him, win that far more easily. Or you can use ambush tactics. Okay, by turn 8, situation could look like this. You got a rebellion in Altdorf, not really a problem. And we also have Kemmler having declared war on Marienburg as an expected outcome. What we want is that specific fort battle. Research-wise, warrior priest research should be finished by now. You can keep going for different bits of research, like getting an extra engineer and such. What I personally prefer starting to do at this point is starting to get Imperial Architects. Or you can go commodity trading, different discussions, or you can go with manners. Depends on how you want to view it, right? Imperial Architects, the entire chain gives you construction cost, reduction, income from industry, and crucially construction time for all buildings. And by the way, you don't need that because the noble trait does stack. So if you want to construct things very, very fast, that is not the problem. But if you don't want to end up screwing yourself over with regards to supply lines, you do have different decisions. Now, with regards to Kemmler, he will attack as is expected. Right there. And that's the thing. I know he will attack. I also know the strength of the garrison that exists over here in Fort Bagre. The timing might be a bit off, sometimes it won't work, all that, but that's the ideal scenario you want to be in. Usually it works. Bear that in mind. Usually this is no problem. You just do it exactly as I said. You open the gates as well. Maybe. And you keep taking a look at various diplomatic options in terms of, okay, I can trade with this faction, I can deal with that situation. You can also sell Solent to Elspeth, but I would recommend delaying that for a bit. Now, the reason you actually want to go for Sterling is you don't need to sell Solent. You want to keep control of it directly for the seat so you can keep recruiting Eldred's guards. There is a cooldown, but Karl Franz does have a way of dealing with said cooldown through requisition. So I could, at this specific point, I could definitely go for that. Yes. Open the gate, by the way. You kind of want to sometimes wait on it until there's one population surplus point or two or whatever. Like in this case, I could use it on Faldorf. I'm actually going to wait one turn. The rebellion will take its time. Kemmler will be attacking right now. An army of spearmen, crossbowmen, handgunners, and outriders is more than capable of defeating him. And again, as I've stated here, this battle layout significantly favors you. There is no chance, like, I would honestly believe, without a doubt, that this garrison army can actually defeat Kemmler. And I'm not joking on that. Even naturally. Obviously, auto-resolve wise, they wouldn't. And, you know, sometimes you do get 2 battles because vampire counts be fucking vampire counts. But this is in your favor. You lure Kemmler in. He gets wiped out. You might have to fight 2 battles back to back, so be careful on that because he does have those kind of armies on higher difficulties. Always support the factions you want to confederate here. The fealty of, you know, Aslan, the faction which typically gets wiped out very quickly, is not an especially damn relevant one. So anyway, we move Karl right here. In this situation, we take Giraud right here as a settlement. Kemmler is in effect gone. Get rid of any building that's not a barracks building. And also, if you want to speed up construction sometimes, and sometimes you do, you can always temporarily recruit more nobles. And yeah, Musalan is not worth really fighting. It's more a temporary declaration of war. They can then turn into a declaration of war against Sinnelleos, which also isn't going to be a factor or problem. This is the point where we can get rid of some of these units, right? So we just ditch them. We go... Crossbowmen are useful because they can fire over units. Outriders and pistoliers and such are always useful for their own reasons. I'm not going to recruit a full stack of troops because I'm just a couple of turns away. I mean, I could, you know, if I want to fill up the ranks and all that kind of jazz. Right here, I'm just going to get another noble. In fact, I'm going to keep this one alive and just start recruiting. Depend on what DLC you own, right? Recruit stuff. Talabheim does tend to get destroyed by Festus, so... You know, that's one of the reasons you might want to confederate them, is because they can be confederated and you could defeat Festus. But it's always a bit of an annoying factor with that. It's exposing yourself to more things than you can deal with. And usually speaking, that is not the way you want to handle these kind of things. Also, I'm not quite sure if... Yeah, it should be active. I can get rid of him at the moment. Reduce the supply line dependency right there. And yes, I know I moved a bit too far there, but it's not really the important thing. I do like, early on at least, an army of crossbowmen and handgunners. Some crossbowmen for firing over units, a couple of handgunners for their sheer damage potential. The damage potential on handgunners is usually greater. So over here, I'm going to get another population surplus. You want to use open the gates often. One, because it's cheap. Two, simply because it's just very, very useful for that growth. Keep the growth going, keep the momentum going when they do attack, and they will attack right here. Make sure you save some population surplus for Altdorf Conclave Battle Wizards. It is an expensive structure to some extent. Definitely worth it. If you want to know what you can always deprioritize, is the damn ports. Ports are useful, but they're also very expensive to upgrade, so don't focus too much on that. You'll also have Cathayan caravans going through Empire territory, and that also gives you more opportunity for declaration of war. Some people really dislike that, oh, you're cheesing the AI and all that shit. But I'm like, yeah, that's how the game is meant to be played. River Lords, great faction to take advantage of in that specific context, because they are at war with various factions right here. So for instance, they're at war with Nakai, you can go declare war, and it's like quite a bit of money that they do end up having. Alright. So as I said, I did go perhaps too far. Anyway, we're just going to raid Stirland, because who cares about Stirland, right? No one really likes Stirland. I don't like Stirland, you don't like Stirland. Actually, over here we can go even further. We can just sell, we get another Cathayan faction. It's usually at this specific point. And we can also get Vision with Geld by either declaring war on him if we're lucky enough, or getting an alliance with Xiaoming. There are ways of doing so through the sake of diplomatic talks once you unlock the Conclave of Light. Here, for instance, I'm going to actually sell Giro to Marienburg. Start building that diplomatic relation with them. You can always rush Marienburg. There's some ways to cheese confederation with them. Like, this is the thing. Cheese does tend to go a bit further than one might think. Also, another unit that many people may underestimate are war wagons. Not a lot of them, but chariots are useful not because they're effective in combat. War wagons are not effective in stand-up combat. But 2 of them or 3 of them, the reason they're valuable is because you can distract a good portion of the enemy army while shooting on the move and move them from their position. That is especially useful against vampire counts. Witch hunters are useful because they give you accusation, and they can also give you a couple of other benefits like silver bullets, he's got snipe, stock, and all that. Or you can go with Templar for reducing enemy winds of magic. Though I don't think Unbreakable is really that worth it. That's just my view on that entire subject. We do have a unification available right there. We can also send some aid. But remember, you do want to ensure you have enough right here. So he's taken Middenheim, Kazrak that is, he's taken Middenheim. He's still a problem there, but he usually, when he attacks, he'll attack Altdorf directly. So as long as some of Midland stays alive, you don't strictly need to aid them. And why go into Bretonnia, you might ask? Well, beyond Kemmler threatening the Empire, Bretonnia is actually pretty useful for Karl, of all people. See, Bretonnia as an area of the campaign map, typically speaking, is not a great area to expand in, because it has those 2 region settlements that are pretty damn worthless. Thing is, when you're playing Karl, you do have that significant growth benefit, right, in your campaign for Open the Gate. So any kind of downside, then yes, this is the attack. No, this army does not win. How the hell did I get High Elves? I don't know. Oh, it's probably some, like, you know, unusual occasion. But even the baseline garrison, it's like, you know, one of those things. Yes, we have Talabayim back to them. And we keep moving over here. Maybe I should have moved even further. And just keep constructing stuff. Keep building stuff. We have an entire army right here. Set another trap. If Kemmler bites again, that's great. Again, he cannot win. He might win against you in a field battle. He cannot win against you in a fort battle. Just a factor. Hell, I think I could have auto-resolved that even, you know, default settings. And you might want some growth buildings. You might want a bunch of things right here in location. You might want to go with, you know, cannons and all that kind of stuff. It's not really important to get the warrior priest benefit here as quickly as possible. We do have an engineer. I'm going to get that for Karl. And we're also going to get rid of this specific warrior priest. And again, money, different ways of dealing with that. Many different ways of dealing with that specific problem. Like, you know, you can go to Western provinces once you encounter them. If you encounter them, declare war on the burning nomads, and they might even fold. In that situation, you can declare war on Gorbat. Don't ever ally Averheim, by the way. That's just an invitation for Gorbat to invade you, by the way. Averheim does have a specific tendency. They're freaking mad. Well, it wouldn't be the first, would they? On that specific subject. But yes, delay certain structures if you need to get certain heroes. I would say just a warrior priest for Karl and an engineer especially. Very useful until you can get Gotrek and Felix with the warrior priest. And the thing is, once you get Gotrek and Felix and attach those to Karl's army, you can move the warrior priest to another one. That's something worth pointing out on that subject. But yeah. The AI also does tend to prioritize attacking field armies as opposed to attacking fortified locations whenever they can, partly because settlements have an auto-resolve benefit to them and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you know, it's sometimes Kazrak takes Middenheim, other times he doesn't take Middenheim. Even if it's completely destroyed, by the way, even if Middenheim is completely destroyed, go with Safeguard. The Mantalabioms return. We're just playing checkers right here. Anyway, it's time for war against Stirland. Because of course it's time for war against Stirland. So go with Casus Belli. Declare war on them. Take their shit. And remember, we're here to sell it to Elspeth. Why do we want to sell it to Elspeth? Well, because, one, we actually do want to provoke a war between her and Vlad. And second thing is, it will give us money. And it will also actually make Elspeth fucking useful. So that's the part where we do care about these kind of things. So right here, me just taking that settlement. Finally, Marienburg has seen the light. And yeah, as expected, these kind of declarations of war do end up paying off. Don't piss off the Wood Elves, except the Forest and the Empire. You will eventually have to take that. Not the immediate priority, but all the same, a kind of focus later on in a campaign. Keep opening the gates. In this case, I'll even wait a bit longer with regards to upgrading these elements. Don't worry too much about like the red inn and all that shit. It's just like that's a big money thing for very, very limited benefits here there in that situation. But growth, that's the important bit. You may also want to remove corruption in certain elements. You also have a way of doing so. But we got a defensive alliance with Elspeth, or a military alliance with Elspeth. We can go take Artois. Mortars are not great siege equipment, but they are still siege equipment, and so they have siege attacker available to them. We take back Artois. We sell that to Marienburg. And the reason we sell it to Marienburg is, well, that's a lot of fucking useful money. We can also, you know, help Stirland, or help Vlad, or detonate some mortars and spells on Vlad's head as he's trying to, you know, take this specific settlement. If we're being, you know, cheeky little bastards about it. Or just wait for him, his entire army to to be devastated right there. So yeah, Castle Artois here, if you've dealt with Kemler's army, it's ideal to confront Kemler and vampire counts in sieges as opposed to field battles. It's just easier. What's the corruption level? Okay, not good enough for us to deal with that just yet. But yeah, keep paying attention to what's going on. Some declarations are not worth it. Keep building up their relationship with different factions. Just don't ally Averheim. You can do anything you want with Averheim, just don't ally them. Because what usually happens, minor factions, when you ally them, start going crazy sometimes. The reason they start doing so is because they start thinking, oh, I allied a powerful faction. Me strong. That's not how that plays out. I like to point out ever how it plays out in the course of a campaign. So don't accept that nonsense on their part. We do have Grom. We also have Clan Mulder. This is one of the reasons I don't care much about the Eastern Empire and especially Talabaim. You confederate Talabaim and you declare war on Mulder, or you just end up sharing a border with many factions that don't really like you. Suffice to say, putting that aspect mildly, it may end up hurting more than it helps. So over here, just dealing with some spearmen, removing them. I'll get greatswords and Eldred's guards soon enough. Karl is still only level 11. Could have potentially been level 12. You get more quest balance as you go and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So over here, free population surplus. We just want 4. We want to get Altdorf to tier 4. And we want the settlement right there, the capital. And there's the Changeling, our good old buddy. Our pal, our friend, our nuisance. The Changeling is very easy to defeat. He's not really worth fighting as far as I see it. But he definitely gives you some experience, gives you that legendary Lord defeat trait. Vlad is the trickier part. And it's, typically speaking, far more ideal to just let Elspeth deal with that. Oh yeah, that's the part where we go like, okay, we're doing that, apparently. So, settlement region trading, back and forth. So, Sol Artois for Giraud. Get that military alliance with Marienburg. And you can sell Giraud back to them. That's also a factor. And that's why I love the Eastern River Lords. There were so many factions that that when you do something like that. Okay, here we could go to a fight against Vlad, or we can attack his settlement directly. We have enough movement range to do so. Probably would have been a smarter move to just not do it like that. But yeah, that would be a hell of an auto-resolve result right there, even with the shit I'm using. That's the thing, there's a lot of troops there. And we will also want to wait an ambush right here. We want to drag Kemler into the light right there. But defeating Vlad, it looks like a bigger issue than it is. See, the way these settlement designs are, there's no towers in vast sections. Like here and here, you can approach the walls with no towers whatsoever being available. That means you can devastate the defenders and do significant damage. Even if you don't win, and that is definitely a possibility. But even if you don't win directly, you can still do damage, withdraw, go again, do more damage. And that's the thing why sieges suck. It's because you can do this shit. Some obviously have a different perspective. One of the things I could definitely do is use Inquisition to reduce the corruption and wait in ambush for him. Like, I could have ambushed him here. That might have been the smarter play. In certain ways. Right? Because even if an ambush fails, that's the aspect. Even if an ambush does end up failing, you still get those advantages. So I guess I do have a battle against Vlad right there. It takes some doing, but it's definitely something to be done, and you know, different benefits, all that kind of stuff. Might be useful to see if we can co-opt the changeling over here. Apparently not, sadly. All right. At this point, we got the Caraberg Greatswords, and now I can finally use Requisition to reset the recruitment of all of these units. You also want to deal with the Changeling on your turns. With regards to the Changeling, you don't need to really worry too much about him once his army is destroyed. You can also sell the Electrocount State Capitals once the cooldown is up. So, all these lovely units that we do have right here. And remember, Karl does replenish his own army in neutral territory. So as long as you're not at war with Festus, you should be fine. And yes, that is the approach. But at this point, you really start talking about like how the dynamic has changed. Like sometimes the Albion gets destroyed very quickly, other times it doesn't. Sometimes Midland ends up being useful. Other times less so, but you can always revive Midland. And once you're at this specific stage, you can recruit, well, pretty much whatever the heck you want. Khazrak will do Khazrak things, of course. In this case, the dwarves are the ones attacking Kelmner, so I'll just take the peace agreement. And and with all the diplomatic relation build-up, I've gotten the confederation with Marienburg. Pretty useful. And all that settlement swapping I was doing with Artois and all that kind of stuff, we keep doing that. Because there's different options. This is how you gain money. Some people don't like this, again, but some people play the game like it's like full-on fantasy mode. So you get, so for instance, we want Grungzint, for instance, from Lewin. He'll always take it. We will sell that to dwarves, the same dwarves who offer us really good infantry units for allied recruitment. With Karl, you want to get his special skill line, especially because you get Best of the Empire, you get Heroic Knightly Band, all these kind of lovely benefits, and then you focus on, you know, regular stuff, melee skill line, etc. You also do have the Galmaraz quest battle, but I'll be blunt, Galmaraz, as useful as it is, do you know what's more important? Gotrek and Felix. Yeah, that's a hell of a battle, though. Keep in mind, just be aware that battle is not as easy as the Auto Resolve makes it look to be. Though, because it is Slaanesh, you can always use the Auto Resolve quest battle mod, and personally, I'm just gonna say it outright, I can care less, honestly, about that specific dynamic. So over here, we're just going to get all these units, and then sell Wartbard to Elspeth. That way, she can go deal with Vlad herself, while we go deal with Festus. This is the thing, this entire adventure of going southward and all that, the reason, and going after Stirland, this has all been with one specific purpose: getting Elspeth to get off her fucking ass and actually do something about Vlad. She is a hard counter to Vlad, and even if she loses, that's less important than the fact that Vlad is just not running around with no restraint whatsoever. And that's the reason we do all of that. To control that specific topic. Get noble, get all this good stuff. You may even want to construct a barracks right here, another one. Get a captain. for this specific army. Witch Hunter, Warrior Priest. Let's talk about magic. The most useful schools of magic from my view are Shadows. Spells are really nice. Things like the Pendulum, pretty good. Pit of Shades, etc. Pretty good. All that stuff. And you won't just get one mage, you'll get several. So yeah, we start moving heroes right here. I am losing definitely a lot of freaking money right in this state of affairs. And Marienburg is, well, not really the best state, I probably would say. So bear in mind where you're at, the campaign movement range available, all that good stuff. But here's where we can be a bit scaven-y on this subject. Because you see, when an Electrocom faction gets wiped out, and you revive it, you can trade stuff to them, and they won't be at war with other factions, including Khazrak. It's a bit weird, I know, but it does end up happening. Keep sending aid to Elspeth. All that good jazz. We're just looking to buy time. That's all we are doing here. Buying time. Getting rid of fluff that doesn't matter, because a lot of this doesn't. And you don't need this full army to deal with that specific situation. I mean, we can keep playing our cards right. What we want in Bretonnia as a specific settlement, we want only one province, really. Not Artois, not Kelmner-Shed. We want Bordelot. The reason we want Bordelot is this specific port is amazing. Wine barrels, trade resources, production, all that. You can always rush it if you want to. Keep in mind, that stacks with Marienburg's port. Yes, the same port which we just upgraded right there. But again, at this point, you're in a situation where you can't plan anymore. What you can plan is baiting Kemmler, dealing with that, getting him in a position where he cannot win because he can't. And, you know, when you're at the stage of talking about tier 4 and eventually tier 5, in fact, you can get to tier 5 before turn 20. When you're in this specific dynamic, you no longer have to worry about shit. In fact, I think I'm going to get 3 great swords. Or should I? Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Regardless, war wagons with mortars are interesting things. Get rid of the barracks, you don't need it anymore right there. Well, you do need it for this specific turn, you know, when you're recruiting shit. And that would be it, boys and girls. At this point, we look at the Empire campaign status situation. While Imperial Authority is not in the best position, to put it freaking mildly, it is in a position where you are fine. Really. Like, yeah, there's rebellions and such all over the place, but we're pretty good. Really. No joke. And hell, we can even be better than one might think. Like, we can... Oh, there's a rebellion that's gonna come up. Let's recruit a bunch of trash regiments for now, just in case, you know, it goes a bit under control. I don't think any rebellion would be a problem there, but safety nets. That's what regiments of renown are, or at least some of them are. They are the idea that you have a couple of units that you can recruit instantly. Mind you, as Karl, you can recruit stuff instantly if you want to with conscription. We're pointing out, too. But, you know, a lot of the times it may not necessarily be worth it. We can declare war on Grom, but don't declare war until you're actually ready to attack a specific faction. Also, you get ogre mercenaries. Man-eaters are a nasty fucking thing that shouldn't be underestimated. And recruiting them through the ogre mercenaries that are in Taliban can be pretty useful. And just make sure you don't let the Festus run amok across the entirety of Taliban. Like, some of it being destroyed is fine. All of it being destroyed is not especially a great fucking idea. Okay, so in this case, Khazrak has decided that he's gonna do something I actually didn't really expect him to. That may be a problem, but not quite. We can tackle that. Regiment's Renown, instant recruitment, and also Beastmen being complete dogshit, right? So, you know, help Everland, all these events that do happen. What about money, you might ask? Well, that is obviously a factor, but one we can deal with. In fact, I'm going to cancel these structures right here and just sell them to Marienburg. Marienburg. To Midland. Right, in that situation. Okay, what do you deal with then? How do you deal with this specific affair if this does happen? Pretty easy, honestly. Bunch of regiments renown, local recruitment, all that kind of stuff. Did she deal with the rebellion? Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And that's why we're dismissing this army. And now we have a battle over here against one of Festus's armies. Not an issue. Again, regiments renown should usually be used as a last resort or something they use temporarily. Get rid of them, trigger that cooldown, get more units, all that stuff. Because the reason... Okay, Midland refused to join. That's fine. We'll get that alliance sorted out with them anyway. You can obviously take a settlement for the sake of, and in this case, the mortars, if you want to. Alright, so speaking about the subject of, you know, Khazrak right there, as I stated, not really a factor. Could have taken Taliban in that situation. Some major factions are sometimes wise to declare war on, but not necessarily Nakari there when she's, you know, running rampage. Oh, top knots are still alive. Running around, rampaging, decimating everyone in their path. Clan Verms, definitely an easy target of attack. Factions won't easily declare peace with you. But yeah, with Khazrak, look, with regards to Khazrak, it's just a very simple affair. We got 3 regiments renown. We got this situation. And we also have a battle. I mean, this seems like I will lose, but nah, when Knights of the Blazing Knight. Like, that's the reason Auto-Resolve is a bunch of bullshit. That army is actually one of the easier ones I've dealt with this entire campaign. And, you know, at this point, this army has served its purpose. It's no longer important to keep them alive, except the Cav, right? So it's like, we just pull back. Right here. And we also do a bit of conscription. Voila. Very simple, very easy. Tackle the problem. Combination, the kind of Imperial army want may look like this. And yeah, let Festus take Taliban, no problem. That merry-go-round situation is actually to your benefit if you want to think of it like that. Well, kind of, because in this case he would, you know, prevent our replenishment. But still, you know, when Khazrak attacks here, he won't fucking win. That's just a, you know, fact right there. And unification is available. Like, oh, I can unify Midland if I want to. Do I want to? Not really. Not right now. I can get unit experience if I want to. Do I want to? Again, not right now. But kind of weird that actually Kazrak actually went for Allard. His suicide of Altdorf is kind of a legendary thing right now in Total War. But yeah, we do want Bordello. Ideally, we want the entire province, but if it's only Bordello, that's worth a lot. And again, Karl Franz. I mean, skill line choices are pretty damn obvious. If I were to give a tip to people, it's things like melee defense, armor. Like, if we look at melee skill lines, it's like armor is useful, melee defense is useful. I'd say probably melee defense is usually more important than armor. So, hard to hit, for instance. With Gotrek, the physical resistance from Stubborn Defiance is actually more important. Gotrek is pretty damn powerful. The reason you want to focus on things like melee defense and survivability for your heroes is usually melee heroes are pretty good if you can keep them alive. So things like melee defense do help that. And the main thing to be said about the Empire Army, what are you doing? Like, how do you want to use said army? All right, I'm actually going to get rid of this captain. Don't know why I saved him. So now let's see what Kazrak does. Could he win? Maybe. I doubt it. Between all the shit I have here, the garrison, you corner camp, you beat the crap out of him, and then you march and deal with his Hearthstone. But decision making at this stage can be a bit, different, right? Oh yeah, don't forget, like, Electric Count. So before I wrap this up, just some things I want to say. What are the regards to Imperial Authority? Does it matter? Obviously it does, but it's not the priority for you to focus on and lose sleep for at least 20 turns, right? Obviously getting to Prospering is a good thing. You're not going to get to Heirs of Sigmar just because you need to take all of the Empire, but you can definitely get to Prospering, but it's going to take a while. Don't prioritize that. Don't worry too much. Try and keep it away from the nation crumbles. That's the part where it does genuinely hurt, but usually you won't get it. You will suffer a bit of growth and control, but not really too big of a problem to tackle that either. In terms of Electric Count units, what are the useful ones? The ones you actually want to go for? Well, you've seen them. Eldred's Guard, because good spearmen. Stir Patrol, pretty good. Taliban could be also useful. Obviously, I ignore that. Outriders with grenade launchers in Marienburg. And, of course, Karabakh Greatswords. What about the Steam Tank? Like, why don't you just take known, or get fealty with them very quickly? Because you can. Like, you can, if you time it right, you can at least give Elspeth to fealty. That puts you to 6. Then 2 send aids. You're there. Not worth it. A Steam Tank is very good. Do you need it for combat capabilities? Sometimes, but, if you're in a situation where you are struggling against your enemies, one Steam Tanks won't win, because usually those situations against Vampire Counts, for instance, which are your main early game opponents, are going to be like they outnumber you 3-1. Steam Tank won't change shit in that respect. It's also a very expensive unit. So don't bother with that. It's far more useful to keep Elspeth alive and have her deal with the Vlad problem, as I'd call it, than to confederate her for the sake of an Emperor's Wrath. That's the problem. A lot of people look at those flashy units and think, I must have this. Well, my reply is, do you really need it? Like, that's my perspective with Thunder Barges as well. Why I wouldn't care to recruit them very quickly. A lot of people complain, oh, people doomstack. No, a smart player doesn't doomstack. A smart player gets free armies for your one doomstack and dominates the map with that, as opposed to wasting valuable resources on shit that doesn't matter. Yeah, ignore dot resolve. This would probably be a manual battle, but there's very little chance fucking Kazrak would win this here. Of course, could have seen that coming. I just expected he'd attack Altdorf, so I guess the AI behavior has shifted a bit. I guess the dwarves got their ass whooped. bad. I expect her better that way. Okay, if the Fey Enchantress takes the specific settlement, there are ways around that. You can either take Musalon, try and trade that for it, or you go to war with Orion, or no, you take Massive Oracle, trade that to Orion, get that settlement from Orion, you know, do all that kind of stuff. Alibi and beat the crap out of Festus. Shockingly. Some things do eventually happen. Yeah, well, rather they took Hergig. There's some value proposition in the handgunners of Hergig. Absolutely. Oh, they're gonna attack Marienburg. Boo-hoo. Whatever shall I do about that? Well, pull back. Let them come. Let them try and take it. Let them waste their resources. Marienburg is useful to get early on because they'll usually have a cavalry building chain. And Knights of the Blazing Sun, if you do own the DLC, can be pretty damn nice, not gonna lie. This is the point where you get rid of all these regiments for now because they're a massive waste of resources and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just merge these armies together and stabilize the situation, as it were. Though maybe, you know, with less nonsense. Alright. That's all I had to say. Costin signing out. At this point, you know, campaign stable. Campaign is effectively won. I would just roll over Festus, secure, you know, Nordland even. Like, deal with Festus, deal with use Karl to take Middenheim back, give that to Boris, then Confederate Boris, tackle that problem, you know, sort all of that out. And also, given the level of prestige I have, this is the point where you would really start considering getting Emperor of the Empire. So you don't have to worry about fealty to Confederate factions. That's what I would do with Elspeth. I don't care for her fealty, because I know it becomes irrelevant at one point. That's all I had to say. Costin signing out.